Question comes to us from Yudha. Who do you think RDJ is playing in the next Avengers movie? Is he a Victor Von Doom who has Tony Stark's face? Or is he a Tony Stark who became Doctor Doom like Star-Lord T'Challa? Which one do you think is the better route or direction? Thank you. All right, my guy. I have talked about this a lot, but I love the way you asked the question, tying it to the What If episode where T'Challa becomes Star-Lord. So I have to give this question some love, and I thought I would take the opportunity to clarify my position as well, and talk about the other possibilities of exactly who Robert Downey Jr. is playing in this movie. Dr. Victor Von Doom, bad Tony Stark, who is called Dr. Doom, both. Let's break it down. So, what I really love about your question is your example of a T'Challa who became Star-Lord. That is such a good example of how this version of Doctor Doom from Doomsday, how he could be Tony Stark and not actually have any connection to Victor Von Doom. That would mean no Tony Stark was born a Von Doom but was adopted by the Starks. No, he was born Tony Stark but then adopted by the Von Dooms. Just straight up Tony Stark, who takes a certain path that leads to him becoming the villain, Doctor Doom, taking on that moniker without actually being Victor Von Doom. That's not a theory that I have really been promoting. I'm a big fan of the adoption theory, as we'll discuss. But that is totally a way that they could do it and make it work. Because in What If, we saw a scenario where instead of a younger Peter Quill being abducted by Yondu, Yondu instead nabbed T'Challa. And instead of T'Challa, living his life in Wakanda and becoming the Black Panther, we see him go on to live a life in space where he becomes Star-Lord. And funnily enough, Peter Quill was set on a path to work at Dairy Queen. I love Dairy Queen. I kind of want Dairy Queen now. Anyway, so it really could be that simple with Tony and Doom. We could have the same scenario where we had T'Challa be Star-Lord instead of Peter Quill. And that doesn't mean that T'Challa and Peter Quill are variants because they were both Star-Lord. Of course not, because we're not talking about them as beings. We're talking about hero and villain monikers, just like multiple people have been Spider-Man or Batman, but that doesn't mean that they're all variants with Peter Parker or Bruce Wayne. So with Doom, it could simply be that this is a reality where Tony Stark is the guy that became Doctor Doom. Now, the one hiccup to that is that the Russo brothers, the directors of the film, they have said when they announced that RDJ was playing the character, they said that he is playing Victor Von Doom. So that would essentially be the equivalent of, instead of saying Chris Pratt or the late Chadwick Boseman, I forget who voiced. Did he get to voice? I'm wondering if he got to voice in What If. I can't remember. Anyway, it'd be different from saying like they're playing Black Panther or Star-Lord, or they're playing Peter Quill or T'Challa. They didn't just say that RDJ is playing Doctor Doom. They said he is playing Victor Von Doom. And that's why I've always been so certain that, one, yes, he is playing Victor Von Doom, not just, a Tony Stark that became Doctor Doom, became a bad guy, but also, two, that there's no way in hell that they cast RDJ to play Victor Von Doom and just ignore that he looks like Tony Stark. Just ignore that this would mean that Victor Von Doom and Tony Stark have a multiversal connection. And real quick, sidetrack, I've never understood this argument where when I was saying that, yes, Victor Von Doom, the guy that RDJ is playing, will be a variant of or with Tony Stark, meaning that Tony Stark could be a Victor Von Doom variant. Semantics, whichever. They're variants of one another. And when I would say that, people would say to me, no, the Russo brothers said he is playing Victor Von Doom. Yeah, exactly. They can be multiversal variants of one another and have been given different names at birth, or if one was adopted or something. That you're just proving my point. So anyway, my theory, and many others have come up with this theory as well, is that in the mainline MCU, perhaps the guy we know as Tony Stark, he really was born Victor Von Doom and was adopted by the Starks, and Howard Stark probably experimented on him. We heard him say, "You're my greatest creation," so maybe there was, something more to that, and made him his adoptive son more like him because he knew he was adopted, because he adopted him, and he wants him to be more like him. So maybe he experimented on him, and that's why he's so different and acts like the guy that we know as Tony Stark. And that could also be why there is this like tension between those two characters as he got older, which is perfectly normal for a father and son who are a lot alike to have those tensions. But also it could be because he was really never his son. So I think that was a cool way. There is a cool way that they can do it. I think by doing that, by having them be multiversally connected, that falls in line with the whole shtick or theme or whatever you want to call it that they have been setting up for this multiverse saga. They've hit us over the head with the multiverse and variants and how all of that works. So it just makes sense that in a scenario where they bring RDJ back to play the main villain, where he previously played the main hero, and it's in a saga and a movie all about the multiverse, then it's just the most obvious answer that they're variants of one another. That's what the entire saga has been setting up. Now, if the Russos hadn't said that RDJ is specifically playing Victor Von Doom, then I would totally be on board with the possibility that we're just seeing a variant of Tony Stark that becomes Doctor Doom, which is something we've seen in the comics. And maybe it's a variant of Tony Stark that survived the snap, kept the Infinity Stones, and became this power-hungry, scarred guy who now goes by the name Doctor Doom, or maybe people started calling him Doctor Doom. And because of like the multiverse and how, different things can happen, but that are similar between universes, and maybe it's like a constant in the multiverse that there are different people who ascend to this role of Doctor Doom. So we could see Tony Stark become this guy that, has the same scars and the same green hood and the same, like a similar armor. And it's just a constant of the vastness of the multiverse that sometimes Tony Stark is the guy that becomes this idea of who we understand to be Doctor Doom. And then hell, maybe we could learn that it was this Tony Stark Doctor Doom, kind of like Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, that inspired the Joker that would go on to fight Batman in the future, and this inspired the separate guy who, called himself Joker that killed Bruce Wayne's parents. Maybe it's a similar thing here where it's the Tony Stark who is Doctor Doom and has that moniker of Doctor Doom that actually inspires the real Victor Von Doom to take up that moniker in the future and become Doctor Doom. It gets a little coincidental there. This guy named Victor Von Doom is going to pick up the mantle of this completely separate guy whose name happens to also have the word Doom in it. Maybe they could change that by having his name be Victor Von something else, but then everybody will cry about that. So, maybe they shouldn't do that. So here's the other thing. Right. Okay, I'm on it. Guys, the holidays are coming up, so I wanted to share with you a cool new game console by the sponsor for today's video, The Next Playground. This is a game system that has full body motion sensing technology, meaning your entire body becomes the controller. I love a present that you can unbox immediately and start playing with the whole family. And this is exactly what I'm going to be bringing to my holiday get-togethers this year. It's super easy to set up, it's plug and play, no complicated equipment needed. I'm personally really excited to play the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, but I know my nephews are going to be looking forward to playing the Bluey game. So if you're interested in picking one up for yourself or as a gift for someone else, or hey, both, go to the Amazon link in the description below to get yours now. And when I say now, I mean like now, because they are having a Black Friday through Cyber Monday sale, and by using my link in the description below, you will get $50 off your order. This game system is so much fun, guys, and I know you're gonna love it. Now, back to the show. Now, a scenario that's not going to happen is a scenario where they don't acknowledge that Doctor Doom and RDJ look alike. 0% chance that happens, especially in the multiverse saga that has hit us over the head with the concept of variants. Another one that is really unlikely to happen is that it's just a coincidence that this guy who's Doctor Doom happens to look like Tony Stark. People who like to disagree with anything that comes out of my mouth tend to use the Chris Evans as Steve Rogers and Human Torch argument example, and how Deadpool noticed that Steve Rogers and Johnny Storm from the Tim Story Fantastic Four movies are played by the same guy. Does that mean that Human Torch or Human Torch and Captain America are variants? No, of course not. It was a fucking gag for a fucking Deadpool movie. It's not that serious. So I don't think that should really have any bearing on our theories here. I mean, sure, yes, it can have some bearing, but I think you do have to acknowledge that was a joke, and that they're not going to copy paste that same joke onto, oh, golly shucks, gee, he sure does look like Tony. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. It's going to have a pivotal part of the story that they look alike. Now, well, I don't think they're going to do this, but if they did go the route of it being a coincidence that Doom and Tony look alike, that would still be with the caveat of us seeing Doom realize, like, oh, holy shit, multiverse, I look like these people's hero. Let me use that to my advantage. Don't get me wrong, I do think that is going to happen. I totally think Doom is going to use the fact that he and Tony look alike to his advantage to dupe heroes into trusting him and his vision for how to save the multiverse, and that could use the fact that these same heroes view Loki as having been, a villain. And that could also play a role in them making, making certain characters decide, well, we're going to join the Tony Stark looking dude, not the Loki dude. But even when they do that, which I think they will, it won't be a scenario where Doom is like surprised to learn, hey, I happen to look like this Tony guy. No, that's not going to happen. I think the fact that he and Tony are multiversally entangled will be a big part of the story, not just an exploited gimmick. It's going to have something a little deeper than that attached to it. Now, hey everybody, Colton here, and this is the Mailbag style show where I take your questions about Marvel, Star Wars, DC, movies and streaming in general. Whatever you want to ask, send it in at the email address askcoltonnow@gmail.com, and hey, maybe you'll see your question featured right here on the show. And guys, I get a lot of questions sent to the Mailbag, and I wish I could answer every single one of them, but sometimes I just cannot get to them all. But if you are a channel member, that does guarantee that you get one of your questions answered right here on the show every show. So if you want to support the channel in that way, it is very much appreciated. And remember, the show is now on Spotify, Apple Podcast, all the podcasting places. So please, if you've got a sec, give the show a download. It really helps us out a lot.